Hi, it's Aid from McFade Photography, and today we're going to look at doing some luminosity masking to blend two images, and we're going to use a free plugin which you get in Photoshop called TK Luminosity Mask. If you ever want to get it, you go to your plugins, browse plugins, and just type in TK Lum and it'll find it for you, and just install it and it pops up there and you can just use it. So the first thing to do is to have a look at the photos. So I have done a bracket of 5 photos, as you can see here. So dark one, still dark, medium, bright, and overdone massively there. Okay, that's just automatically bracketed on the R5. So the first thing I do is make my selection of which is my base image. So when I say base image, it's like, what do I want it to look like in the end, or what's closest to it. I think having a nice bright interior like this is probably where I want to be, but the outside is a bit of a problem, isn't it? It's all blown out. So we could do with using the outside of that shot and the inside of this shot. So luminosity masking is a way to get around this because it will allow you to see. Actually, that's a bit bright on that side, isn't it? Really? Let's just check. Yeah, it's a bit overcooked there. We may need to go to this one, but we'll see how we get on. And so yeah, luminosity masking, a mask is basically like a stencil where if the mask is white, it lets things through, and if it's black, it stops them. All will become apparent in a minute. But the first thing we need to do then is get our first shot, and I'm gonna, with my control key held down, click the other two. I'm going to hit this button here to go to auto sync, and what that does, it means any change I make to this one in front of us now will get transported onto the other ones. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I'm just going to go to camera matching and maybe go to neutral. Now the reason for this is I'm not convinced that for Canon cameras the Adobe colors are that good, to be fair. So the camera matching ones are probably a better deal. Right, W gets you the white balance, so we can pick our white balance from these white railings or maybe from the ceiling. Obviously the light is a little bit different down the bottom, so I think I prefer that. Let me just raise the shadows a little bit. I like a nice bit of texture and maybe a little bit of dehaze. No, not so much dehaze. Let's add a bit of vibrance. Okay, are there any specific colours I want to change on this? Maybe just want to click on the red there and up the saturation ever so slightly just to bring that out a little bit, because it's all over the building, isn't it? I'm going to leave the yellow as is. Okay. Detail wise, let's have a little zoom in. Maybe if we add, let's just try it. So I've turned the amount up to 80. I'm going to put my thumb on the Alt key and drag the masking along, just so it's not adding sharpening to those areas which don't have any edges in them. Then I'll go black. Okay. Now, it was using a tilt shift lens, so there's not an awful lot you can do with lens profiles because tilt shift lenses don't have them. Just due to the nature of a tilt shift lens, everything moves. And I think that's probably, that's probably, I might go a little bit brighter. Yeah, so that's made the interior nice. Right, so those changes have been perpetuated back to these photos here. So you can see that one. That's got the same changes. Now what I want to do to help us blend these together best, what I want to do is get the darker one looking as near as I can to this, but with the outsides looking good. Now, how do we do that, you say? Well, for a start, let's just get the reference view up. It's RA, and we can drag our bright one into there. No, we don't need that one. It's the one, this one we want, the one we've just worked on. And then we're going to try and get this one on the right looking similar to the one on the left, brightness wise. But we want to keep the outdoors looking nice and, not burnt out as much as we can. So how do we do that? Well, first up, if we drag the highlights and the whites down quite a bit, see what happens outside. It goes quite dark. So we can then bring the exposure up. I think about there. So the outside looks like it's not massively burnt out. And then we've got one last thing we can do. That's maybe bring the shadows up a little bit. Yeah, so they're fairly similar now, aren't they? Now we do have this area over here, which is a little bit burnt out. So there could be an argument to say we might need to do a similar thing with this one. Now, this is a bit of a different beast. So I'm going to pop our middle one there, and this is our dark one. So we're going to try our best just to darken that one down. Let's brighten it as far as we can go to get those outsides so they're not burnt out. And then we can brighten up the interior. Problem with doing this sometimes is you make the outside look really weird as well. Okay, so we've got 3 photos. So this is our base, which looks nice on the inside. That's largely outside is fine. And this one, well, what we'll do is we'll export them into Lightroom now and see what happens. Okay, so we click on all 3 of them, which you can do by clicking on the first one, pressing Shift and clicking on the last one. Right click on it, edit in, and we're going to go for Smart Object Layers in Photoshop. Now the reason for that is if you do it as Smart Object Layers, it keeps all the raw data so you can pop into Adobe Camera Raw and tweak the raw image if you need to. Right, so let's have a look at what we've got. So right on the bottom here, we've got our lovely bright image. And then here we have our middle image. So let's open up TK Luminosity Mask. Whoopsie daisy. Yep. So let me just start that again. Right. So first thing we do, we hide the other 2, and then we highlight the one we want to put a mask on. Okay. I'll click back on it now. What we want is for it to reveal only the bright bits. So if you look at this, we've got from 6, which 5, 4, 3. Now this is all the dark stuff. So if you think about it, anything that's dark like these red pillars gets shown. Anything that is bright like outside gets hidden. 2, 1. So that's all the dark stuff. And now we go the other way. So this is all the bright stuff. So you notice outside it's gone white, and the dark stuff like these pillars has gone black. So I'm going to keep going until outside is pretty much all that we see. So what I want to happen is I just want the very bright bits of this layer showing. So let's click on this and let's start at 6. So that's just the really, really bright bits. 5, 4. So we're starting to see a bit more. 3. Now, you may be tempted to go for 4, 5, or 6, but what you will find if you do is that the mask it creates and the blend isn't very good. So here we go. We've got that. I'm going to hit, I think, which one's mask? It's dodge and burn, isn't it? That one's selection. I think this one's mask. So let's just hit that. Yeah, there you go. So it's created a mask. Let's just switch it on. There you go. We can do the same again with this darker one. So if we just go for the really bright areas with this one, it may be there. Okay, we don't need much of this. Then click on it and hit the mask button, which is this one here. Same thing happens again. And so we end up with this sort of vibe. Now, remember before I said we have exported as smart objects. Well, that's so I can now pop back into this. And I think if we look at the floor outside, I think we can maybe improve the floor a little bit. So you can see it there. I'm gonna maybe bring those shadows down a little bit, just so the outside looks a bit more realistic. And then I think I might even add a bit of texture to it and a little bit more clarity. And then click OK. See what difference that made. Let's turn the top one off. That's not bad. That's not bad. Although I think maybe our interior one might be a little bit on the bright side. So I'll just switch that back on. What we can do is we go back to the first one, and we can maybe just make the interior slightly darker, just so outside doesn't massively brighter, if you know what I mean. Maybe let's just bring the shadows up a bit. Okay, right. That looks a bit more realistic now, doesn't it? So we've got these 3 photos. That's our first one. That is our middle one, bringing back the detail. And the jury's out on that one, whether we need it or not. One thing we can do with this, if we zoom right in, let's have a quick look. Yeah, they're really burnt out on that first one, aren't they? Okay, I think that's pretty cool. Let's just leave it at that. And then once we've got all the pixels there, we can start to do other edits if you wanted to. You could, start doing dodging and burning and things like that. Certainly outside, you could maybe add a bit of contrast to it using a curve. So let's just quick demo of that. So let's create a curve. Let's pop a spot in the middle. Drag the bottom third down a little bit. Maybe the top third up a little bit, like that. Now, I think for this, it's outside wants darkening, so I'm just going to drag the middle down ever so slightly. Right. Now, what we need to do on the curve is press Ctrl and I to invert the mask, which makes it black. And now we can go and get a brush, which is B on your keyboard. Let's change the flow to about 10, 15-ish. Make sure you're on a white brush and make sure that's highlighted, and then you can just go and add a little bit of contrast on the outside. And wherever you paint, it'll just add a bit of contrast. See how it's made that just sort of pop a little bit more, and the same's happening there. So we're essentially just adding a bit of darkness to those dark areas, a bit of brightness to the bright areas, and leaving the middles alone. There we go. And there's another thing you can do, which is quite cool. If you click on your TK Luminosity Mask again, this time go 1, 2, 3. These are your midtones. Whoops. So it doesn't select the top bright bits, they remain black, and it doesn't click through the bottom bits, which is the low dark bits. So I think I might go with that. And this time I'm going to go for the curves, right? So we've got curves. Click on your, it's gone wrong there. So properties, yeah. Go for preset, strong contrast. And now that's just adding contrast to the middle bits. So if you're going to go to luminosity, it's going to not affect the brightness. And now you can fade in a little bit of what we call mid-tone contrast, a bit like you do in luminosity. So there's another use of that luminosity mask thing. Okay, let's highlight them all. Press Ctrl-G to give them in a group. So we've managed to eke back all that detail from those bright areas. You may want to brighten up some of these dark bits. So let's just go, right. So I think, yeah, number 3. So that's highlighted all these darker areas. Okay, so let's get a curve. And you can see now we've got a curve. And when we drag this up, it'll just brighten up anything which was dark. There you go, that's before and after. Now, obviously, we probably don't want it to do everything because it looks a bit insipid, but we might just want to do up top. So we can do the group again. So you press Ctrl-G, gives you a group. Now with your Alt key pressed down on the group, press mask, and it gives you a black mask. It hides everything. And now you can go back in and let's just brighten up the inside top. And it's only touching those dark bits. It's not actually touching anything else. So you can see, look a little bit dirty, and once you've done that, there we go. Absolutely fine. And then eventually you get to a point where you've just got to say, we're done. And I'm going to flatten the image, but you don't have to flatten it. You can keep all the layers if you think you might need to edit it later, but they do become very large to the files. Okay, and that'll be back in Lightroom, which it is there. There you go. That's how you do it. I mean, once it's back in Lightroom, you can probably do the leveling. You can have a vignette if that's your bag, all that good stuff. but it's a blended image. I mean, you might not be into all that colour. You might want to pull it back and make it look a little bit vintage and faded. I mean, you could, there's all the things you can do in Lightroom available to you now. So you could, you know, do a bit of colour toning. I don't think I'm going to do that there. Let's just reset that. So I hope that was worth watching. Everything I've just done is available for free. There are more powerful things out there like Luminosity TK Raya 6 Pro. There are panels which do a lot of this stuff for you in a quicker way, but that's the theory behind it all anyway. So I hope that's useful.